Welcome to Print to Play of the Week. Today I'm going to be looking at Forgotten Road. This is a Realm of Shadows game. It's one of a trilogy games that I backed on Kickstarter. I backed it at the print and play level and I built it. So I'm going to have a look at the build and have a talk about the game. So this is actually not part of the print and play. I made this box. I recycled an expansion box. I think it's from Elder Sign, but I thought this game was so great it deserved a decent box, so it looks on my shelf. Anyway, let's have a look and see what we get. So this is a dungeon crawl, but it's not a traditional dungeon crawl. That's the rules. I'll stick those somewhere else. Let's have a look. So it's got a lot of cards. It's a card-based game. It's got some dice and it got tokens. So the dice, custom dice. So I printed them, laminated the edges, and then stuck them onto wooden cubes. So there's 3 laminated dice. The cards I printed, then glued onto magic cards, and then sleeved. So it's a pretty simple build. Lots of cards. If you like making cards, that makes it very easy. You need a standard D6. I've got a roll double D6 that I got from a different Kickstarter, just because it rolls a lot better. And I'll get all these out and I'll show you how to set that up. And I'm probably not going to play a game because it takes a little while, but I'll give you an idea so you can get a gist of how it plays. Oh, there's some tokens. I made these printed, cornered, laminated, and then recornered. When I did the lamination on these ones, I gave them quite thick edges because I'm a more kind of a tokeny feel. I'll talk about those in a minute. So in this game, the idea is that you're part of a party of 4 and one of your colleagues has been kidnapped and has been held in a dungeon, and you have to travel a road of beasties fighting off enemies before you can rescue your character. I have also got the expansion for this, which I have merged. So the cards that you'll see today are a mix of the core game and the expansion. So that's why I have so many characters. I think you only get 4 characters in the main game, 4 or 5. But now I've got a lot more. So you need 3. So even if you're playing solo, so you give it a shuffle, and I will take 3 random characters just to keep it interesting. Let's go back in the box. So each of your characters has a health, a ability, which we'll talk about later, and then a special ability that you can use once per game unless they're refreshed. So this one is place. We'll talk about that again later. I'll put my characters down the bottom. The game is over when your health of all your characters is 0, so they're all dead. We have items that we can collect. There's a shop that will pop up every now and then. I'll shuffle those and I'll worry about those later. We have action cards. Action cards are used to fight and to move, and they have different values, and so they are dual usage. They also have symbols that we use for skill checks, similar to the symbols that we've got on the characters and the symbols that we have on the dice, but I'll talk about that in a minute. We'll pop these over. If you run out of cards, action cards, that is game over, but there's a mechanism to reshuffle your discards, but you have to use that at the correct time, otherwise you'll run out of time. So the main meat of this game is, I'm probably going to have to make these a bit further away, is about the dungeon crawling. And so there's 2 components of the dungeon crawling. One is the Forgotten Road itself, and we have a whole lot of road cards. And at the end of the road, and the whole lot of dungeon cards, we'll worry about those in a minute. At the end of the road, there will be a boss character, which you have to defeat. So there's a road boss, and then there's a dungeon boss. The road boss is significantly bigger than any of the other characters. So basically you shuffle up your road bosses. Again, I've got the expansion, so I've got 4. Pick one. Just go back in the box. You get your road cards. You find Lux, which is the first one. You shuffle the rest. and you pick 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the boss goes on the bottom. So we're going to work through those one at a time. So we'll put those over there. We'll put our first card there. And we do the same for the dungeon. So we'll have to go across the dungeon, and then we across the road, and then we go into the dungeon. So we'll shuffle there, and we'll pick one of those. And then we'll have our dungeon. I think we find the dungeon entrance. We'll keep that on the side. And then we shuffle the rest and pick 6 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Put the dungeon boss on the bottom, dungeon on the top, and that can go there for later. And we're pretty much good to go. Oh, I've got my tokens. You've got money, coins, and health. So you can put minus health on your characters, and I'll use that. You've also got 3 special tokens. Marketplaces. You can access the marketplace twice and spend any of your gold. And then there's a camp. And you can do the camp, which allows you to refresh different aspects of your heroes, which you can only use once. You can only use these after you've completed a movement. So when we move from card to card, I'm going to need a token. That's a good point. I should have a token in my box, but I haven't, so I'll grab one quickly. Here we go. I'll use that as my meeple. I usually use a World of Warcraft and Pandemic meeple because it's a neat mythical one. Okay, so the way that this works is we start at Lux and we draw our first road card. And they match up. So I'll just zoom in there. I'll just bring them up a bit closer so you can have a little look. When they match up, a couple of things happen. 1, we get a new location. But 2, we get a randomization on the cost that's going to be from moving from one card to the next, and the skill check that we have to do, and the penalty. So this is where the replayability kicks in, because every time we go along the road, we're going to get different combinations. So it's going to be a different challenge. So when we have this block of cards, before we can move to the second card, we have to complete a skill challenge. So we roll the 3 dice and try and complete that challenge. If we don't, we take the penalty, which in this case, I think this is a character death. Character death? It's always good to look up the icons before you incapacitate one of your heroes. So that's a really bad one. That means you just flip them over. They're not dead. You can fix them with an item from the shop. There's potions that you can get. Okay, so you have to do a skill check. If you fail it, you have to pay the penalty. Then you move down to the fight stage. This beastie's got 5 health. If you can defeat him, you get 1 gold. If you don't defeat him, you have to lose 2 health from one of your adventurers. Then you have to move, and you'd have to pay 6 to move to the next location. And this is why our cards have got numbers and for fight and move. And as soon as we move to the next location, that's where we would use one of our tokens. If we wanted to use our camp or our market, we wouldn't want to do market until we've got some money. And we just go through this cycle, flipping over cards, doing skill checks, doing fights, and taking the consequences. So you don't stay on a card for more than 1 round. You know, you don't stay there till you defeat them. You either defeat them or you don't. Whatever happens, you then have to move. So, for example, we'll put that down. We're here. Where's my dice mat thingy? So the first thing we have to do is, I'm going to get some cards actually. You have a hand of 5 cards, which you then refresh 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the beginning of each round. So 5 cards, which are a combination of fight, move, and icons. The first thing we have to do is the skill challenge. And so we roll our dice, which are actually 3. Okay, so I needed a speech and an eye. So that's great. The dice have provided. So I can move down to fight. This guy's got a 5. And I've got, oh, rubbish rubbish fights, actually. They're all ones. Well, let's just do it. There's a 2 and a 4, so I can discard those 3, which will get me 5. I'll get 1 gold for my troubles. I'll stick that down there. So then I have to spend 6 to move. I've got to move 4 and a move 4, which is really lucky because that allows me to move there, and I've got no cards. Of course, if I had more cards that had better values, when I'm deciding which ones I want to use, because I can use cards for the skill check as well and for the fighting, you can look ahead because you kind of know what's coming up. So you can look 1 card ahead. So as soon as I move, we flip over the next one. And we draw 5 more cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are better cards. Stars are wild cards. You can use them for anything. So the first thing we have to do is skill check. Oh, I need 2 feet. I've got nothing. So I could use one of my wild cards. Or also I've got a feat on one of my characters. So probably not a good idea, but you could tap that to satisfy 1. I use one of the wild cards. That gets me to the beastie. He has got a health of 6, and I've got a fight of 6, so that's easy. I can do that, and then he's 1, and I get 1 gold. And then we have to move for 5, and I've got a move 1, a move 3, a move 3. So I guess I'll keep this one. I have to move 5, and that gets me up to there. As soon as that happens, we get a new card, and I'm chugging along the road. At that point, I could say, hey, I'm going to go shopping, use one of my shopping tokens, and draw 3 items. A bit dumb, because I've only got 2 gold, and I can't afford anything. So this would be a +2 health, or a restore all living characters. So if they've been flipped, I could restore them, or +1 to all living characters. So you want to get a bit of gold before you want to go to the market. So that would have been a waste. So you carry on doing this until you get to the bottom, and then you'd flip over the boss, which would be Draxus at this time. And they have a significantly, well, they'll still have a challenge, and your character will die, but this has got a 13 plus a dice roll. So we would roll the dice, and that means this one would have a health of 14. But of course, as we go through, you can kind of hold on to the cards that you need to build up to the boss battle. And there's special abilities that you can do. So, you know, this one here, Tobias the Blue Mage, his ability is automatically pass a skill test without rolling. So when you get to the boss, you can say, well, okay, I'm going to use that now, get straight to the fight, so I wouldn't have to throw out any cards, so then I have more cards. And there's all kinds of abilities you can get. And so, you know, I've only done 3 locations. So you would have 1 go at the boss. If you didn't, one of your characters would be incapacitated. Your road would be finished. Then you start your dungeon. And it's a similar process. The difference with the dungeon is it's kind of off-centered. So as we draw our cards, we're slowly going. So we go across the road, and then we're kind of going down the dungeon. And again, each time we'd go on a card, we would have to fulfill a skill test by rolling the dice, and then either spending card values, character values, or dice values. If we couldn't, or we didn't feel that that was appropriate, we'd have to pay the penalty. That's -5 gold. And again, you'd have to fight Chieftain as 8. Then we'd have to move for a 7, and we'd go bouncing down. So this is the dungeon crawl. But again, we're taking 6 out of, I think there's 10, 12 different cards. So every dungeon crawl is going to be a little bit different. Sure, there's a bit of luck, but you can also do your hand management. So you can make a decision of whether you want to keep, this one, it's a fight 6. Might keep that over when you're drawing cards. So you draw back up to 5. So yeah, hand management, bit of juggling, deciding when you want to use your camp, when you want to use your shopping. And you can vary the difficulty of the game really easily by making a decision of how many tokens you get. Don't take any tokens, it gets very hard. But then if that's what you want out of the game, if you find it too easy, you can do. And because every boss, this is the Minotaur, is slightly different, again, lots of variability. So I really like the Forgotten Road. It's a good little dungeon crawler. Well worth building if you like doing print and play, because it's mainly just cards. The dice a little bit fiddlier, but building custom dice is fun in itself. Yeah, I really like it, and that is my print and play of the week. Don't forget to subscribe and like.